Well, it's great to have you back. Like we did say, that report sets the tone for our conversation today. And I do understand that all our guests are standing by to jump on this conversation. Like we did tell you, Dr. Toyin Sam-Emehelu, Education and Leadership Mentor, is joining us virtually. Well, Mr. Joe Ejiofor is in the studio, and finally Michael Kelechi is also joining us straight up from Nsukka, where he is a 200 level student, and he's standing by joining us virtually. So right, Mr. Joe, I mean, we had a heated conversation now before we came back on air. Age ban controversy is not news to you. You have been in that environment for years, maybe over a decade, and of course you've seen it all. You've seen both the old, the young, and the not so young, you know, get into school. Now, federal government is concerned about maturity, the maturity of individuals getting into school, you know, and then they think that this is the time, you know, to look at that. But really, they justify this decision on maturity. What do you think?
Well, the government is the regulator of education system in Nigeria. They have a right to regulate whatever they want to do. But my fear and my concern is the timing. Yes, if you look at the 6334 policy of education that was established in 1983, the intention of government was to see that by age 18, one should be in the university. And by age 6, the people should be starting the primary level of education. But along the line, that policy was derailed. Government did not find it wise or thought it wise to implement it, and a lot of things went wrong. I'm not against instituting 18 years as the benchmark for entering the university or writing the national examination. But my concern is what happens to those that are 18 now, that are already in their final years of secondary school. You see, when I was told that I'll be coming for this program, my school runs a secondary school. I went to that place and I asked for the list of students that are going to final year students by writing WAEC next year. And I found that, I look at the age bracket between 16, 15, and 17. So if the government decide to implement this policy, what happens to those kids? What happens to those kids? Beautiful policy, but the government should have started at the foundational level, not targeting terminal level. That is just my fear. But it's a beautiful policy. For maturity, you know, when you are 18, you become matured, and I mean, it's assumed that you become mature to handle some of the influences that you encounter in your higher level, because there are a lot of things in the universities, and if you are not emotionally stable, mature, you may not be able to handle them. Yes, you can be intellectually mature, but emotionally, you are not. And that is what the government is looking at. The government should try and do a lot of things. I always believe that you don't adjust a goalpost while the match is on. If you want to, you adjust it before the match, the beginning of the match. I want to believe that the government should go back to the foundational level. Let's start from primary school level, and then by the time they get to 18, they cannot enter university. But if you start to implement it now, it's going to disrupt a lot of systems.
Well, the beautiful thing is, you know, after an appeal was made to the Minister of Education during the Vice Chancellor's Committee meeting, he did say that all those that had written exam for this year 2024, it would be allowed to go, but subsequent batches would be affected by that age ban. So, so it's still something that we are looking at.
What happens to those that are going to their final year now that are not up to 18?
Okay, so we will get into that.
I'm just asking. You asked the question, very valid question. What happens to those in the final years in secondary school? I am asking, what happens to those that have started primary school, secondary school in JSS1, and they have calculated their age limits They have calculated their age. At what age would they become 18? Or at what age would they finish secondary school? Probably they have calculated in their minds that they're going to finish secondary school at 15, 16. So I'm just thinking, this is just a thought. Would this affect a backlog of students? Like 6 years?
It will.
What is the effect? I think it's a long-term effect.
And that's why I said they should have targeted the foundational level instead of terminal level. Because now it's going to cause a lot of disruption in the system.
Exactly.
It's going to cause a lot of disruption in the system. And then what we are running against will eventually boomerang on us. So...
Yes. At this time, we want to go to our Abuja studios where Dorothy is standing by, and I also know that Dr. Toyin Sam-Emehelu is also standing by via video call. I mean, Dorothy, she's ready for your question.
It's nice having, our guest around. While I agree with Mr. Ejiofor, on making the implementation of this 18 years, admission of 18 years into the institution, I think it should actually start from the primary school. Meanwhile, Dr. Toyin Sam-Emehelu, you are an educator, who deals with young people all the time, and you are quite conversant, with this age-appropriate teaching and learning mechanism. Now, my question for you is, how do you respond to this? What's your opinion of this age appropriation thing happening right now?
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you all this morning. And just like you mentioned, it's something that came to the entire education community as a shock. Because prior to now, one of the things that we are looking at was, not just one of the things, we had so many issues to deal with, from out of school children to even children that even have opportunity to go to school. What is the quality of teaching and learning, to curriculum, to pedagogy, to infrastructure, to teachers development. So we had a lot of issues to deal with, only for us wake up another morning and then we got to hear about the policy of the fact that if it's not yet 18 years old, they are not ready for tertiary education. It came to us as a real shock, I must admit, because prior to now, 16, 17 is the standard age for children to finish secondary school, which I think a lot of us, even on this call, because I also finished secondary school at the age of 16. And, because even that, another thing we have to consider is there's a lot of backlog of students trying to get into the tertiary education, okay? And even students that have finished 4, 5 years, 6 years ago, except for children that are privileged in privileged homes and they actually attend private universities. So it was quite a disruption, And talking about maturity, yes, in as much as that was the main forte, the main reason, the main idea that they were trying to sell to us in the education as education stakeholder, we realize is, sincerely, age is not all that it is to maturity, okay? It's the quality of learning, the quality of teaching. When I say learning and teaching, we are not just saying academics, okay? It's beyond just academics. Learning and teaching life values, learning and teaching soft skills, learning and teaching, so that the child that really matters. The home front is also a major factor that helps to bring about a maturity, how a child is taught to be an independent thinker, how a child is taught to be a critical thinker, how a child has been intentionally ingrained in their day-to-day activities on how to problem solve. All right. So it goes beyond just waking up and just giving a policy just because we feel it's cool. and probably just because we feel that, oh, they should know that during our tenure we do something. I think basically for us in the sector, considering that decision was irrational, a lot of key stakeholders were not consulted before that decision was made. Although we're beginning to get some feedback about the Minister of Education saying that they're going to look into it, they're going to do some consideration, probably because of the reactions of the general populace towards it. But in all, sincerely, it's not like the other speaker said. We need to focus on the main thing. We have a lot of other problems to deal with, and bringing this in, it's not so advisable. And then another issue is when policies are being raised, what are the other things that are being brought in to actually help the policy implemented? Number one. Number two, to make the policy a lot more reasonable. So take, for example, if our vocational and technical learning is doing fantastic, I mean, if we have that system running, nothing says that probably when a child finishes the core academics at the age of 16, then or 17, and then they can have 1 year of raw, practical, technical skills. I think a lot of parents would not have issues if that provision has been put in place. But voila, nothing like that is set in place, and we just wake up and then just go ahead and just say things, and we feel that people will just take it in. A lot of parents have spent a lot of money trying to keep this children actively learning. And one thing we should consider is that you can't keep a young person idle. So they have to consider the vices aspect of it. It's either a child is proactively engaged or destructively isolated. So I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Very much,
All
Dr.
right.
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Toyin, for that contribution. I mean, it came as a shock to everybody. Imagine, like we've been saying, young people who were ready and gearing up, to go, and then all of a sudden you're told that you can't be there until you're 18. Well, we do have someone who he missed, that bullet. At this point, we want to bring in Michael Kelechi Anodo, who got into school at the age of 17. I mean, Emmanuel, you want to talk to Michael?
Yeah. I actually told you that, when Nigeria is doing like this, I'll catch you. You escaped before this policy came. But Michael, it's good to have you. Yeah, it's good to have you. I just want to ask you, what did it feel like when being a person who is you got into school at a very young age, probably before 18. What did you feel? What was your reaction when you got this news? Knowing for a fact that it could have been you.
The feeling is all the same. I feel age is not all the time a determinant of maturity. Yeah, because the same thing, the same way I felt is also the same way everyone felt while gaining admission. So it's all the same thing. It's nothing different.
Yeah, you didn't think.
That's what I felt.
Thank you very much, Michael. Of course, you're saying that, the same way everyone else would have felt. But a lot of people are actually rejoicing to this particular age cap.
They're rejoicing. I don't know about rejoicing, Michael. I think, personally, I actually, when I heard the news, it was, mixed feelings. At the point, I just felt like, okay, so you have a lot of young people who can barely clean, who still have snot in their noses, can't really clean their noses. They're exposed to this world where you have a lot of wolves in sheep clothing. Do they have the maturity to handle themselves? Can they protect themselves, against? Because a lot of times you find that these children, they're living on campus. And so they're exposed to the vagaries of, campus life. Who looks out for them? Who protects them? I mean, campus life, if you are not matured, if you are not street smart, then you are left to the mercy, of any, comer. anybody can take advantage of it, because really you don't have a prefect or you don't have a school father, a school mother, right there, on campus to take care of it. So that really was my concern. I felt, okay, and a lot of times recently we find that parents actually are rushing their children through the system, and I'm wondering, why are you rushing this child? Why are you taking the child's childhood away? You want your child to become matured before the time. For some parents, it's bragging rights. Oh, my 15-year-old daughter is in school. I mean, she's in year 1 in University of Benin or University of Lagos. They are not concerned about the readiness, mental, physical, psychological readiness of that child to be in that world. For them, it's just a bragging right to say, oh, I mean, my 15-year-old is in school. I mean, my daughter got into school at 15 and she graduated at 18. So what are you going to tell me? But again, that in itself throws up the context of gifted children. There are some children who are, extremely intelligent. And, Mr. John, I'm going to pose that question to you. There are children who are at that genius level. So in that, you cannot leave such a mind idle. Parents would think, okay, the next best thing would be to ship them off to school where their minds can be engaged. But now we have a policy that says that until you are 18, you can't get into school. I mean, this 2024 batch, they escaped that bullet. But the next batch will not escape, because that policy will be implemented and it will, affect them. So looking at such gifted children, what can we do for them? How do you see this impacting them? How do you see this throwing up inadequacies in our education system?
Yes, you cannot do away with that concept of gifted children. You have them everywhere. I know the government of Nigeria, I don't know if that school is still existing. There's a school in Niger State that was established mainly to attract people with exceptional skills. But with this new limiting age policy of the government, the gifted children can still be accommodated. All what government needs to do is to identify them early and then ensure that they are tailored and put into a school that is designed for them. I mean, China, I always like to make example with China because I was there for some time. China has such system. Once they identify you, they see that you have an exceptional skill. They pick on you and then confine you to a special place with other kids. And this saves them from the actual government age policy because they are not affected. So the Nigerian government too can borrow a leave from that. But this sweeping policy of classifying everybody together may deprive this kid with exceptional skill from growing. So that's just my point there.
Dr. Toyin, let me pose, thank you very much, Mr. Joe, for your answer. Dr. Toyin, let me pose that same question to you as one who deals with young minds almost on a daily. Do you think this policy is detrimental to them, or do you think it's of an advantage, to them? How do you think it will impact on them in the long run?
You mean for the gifted children, right?
Yes.
Yes. So of course, for the gifted children, there's something we call differentiation in learning, right? And that actually has to be with identifying children at their different levels of learning. So definitely for gifted children, they oftentimes have been able to, so they have the special abilities to actually sometimes even think of the facilitator or the teacher for various reasons, genetics, experience, and all of that. Definitely, it's going to affect them. It's going to affect them because if government does not put things in place to cater for them, I mean, just like I said initially, it just turns into something that they would find it difficult and restless. Most of the time, different children are restless because of the way their minds work. They want to explore, they want to get their hands on things, they want to So I was reading an article yesterday or